my name is Michael Pierce, also known as the Celestial Ronin, and I wanted to talk to you today about a little bit of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, specifically Jar Jar Binks, and his relationship to the film's cinematography, namely composition, size, and his position on frame. So with this, there's a few things I'll be discussing. I have a few notes to help me along, see how much of this I can discuss coherently, so that we can have kind of like a more full conversation about what's going on in the Phantom Menace and why is Jar Jar positioned the way he is in the film, and why is that important. So this comes back to, there's a quote from Alfred Hitchcock that, namely saying that the importance of the character is relative to their size on frame. This plays a large part in the kind of like where cinematography has come, and there's something about storytelling, using the camera, using what's on the scene to basically tell a story of 1,000 words with only just one picture. So first I want to start with one of the early pictures that we see of Jar Jar interacting with Qui-Gon Jinn. In this scene, we see that Jar Jar, there's this idea, this rule of thirds, that you want to have a composition broken up, like you have a third here, you have a third here, and then you have a third here of the frame, how it's broken up. And that helps with the composition of the frame, that gives some sort of distance in the frame for certain characters and how they're presented. With Jar Jar Binks, he seems to always want to invade the frame of Qui-Gon Jinn throughout the film. That even begins from their very first relationship, and just the whole idea of how important Jar Jar is to the story. Now in this beginning frame, you can kind of argue that, okay, this is the part of the plot in which Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi are going to get from this stranded aspect to the main capital in Naboo to get to the Queen. But then later on, when Jar Jar becomes more of a background character, such as the Tatooine sequence, we see that he dominates these frames, always pushing into Qui-Gon. So in this instance where Jar Jar Binks is standing there when the Queen goes with their party into town, we see this moment where Qui-Gon has rejected the idea that the handmaiden should come, but then once again the captain insists that she does, and we see Jar Jar in this frame where this is the beginning of the frame where he starts to mouth the words of the captain. You can kind of see the formation of the same lettering there. This is where I pause the frame. At that moment too, we also see this angular idea of Jar Jar's face, where he is looking to the left of the frame, or he's looking to the right of the frame, but then his eyes are to the left of the frame. So you can kind of see that contrast of what he's doing there. It doesn't bring a lot of attention to him for some reason in the shot. Perhaps it's his skin color blending into the sequence of Tatooine. But he definitely stands out in this frame, especially with how angular he is, and of course with some of the mouth movement that we've come back and we've seen. We also see the voids in this frame too, that the voids are very angular between all parties surrounding Jar Jar. We also see this kind of same voiding in many classical paintings, such as The Last Supper, where there's like that kind of divide between certain individuals. Let's see. Going on to another scene, we see some of the kind of same framing. We get another one of these instances where Qui-Gon is centered in the camera, but yet we have Jar Jar in a very close distance behind him. And this continues in the next scene. Jar Jar is very much in these frames, invading the space of Qui-Gon Jinn. Going to the dinner scene, we see Jar Jar Binks almost controlling 2/3 of the frame and invading the space of Qui-Gon Jinn using his tongue to eat food. It's that continued invasion of that space that important. Later on that we see Qui-Gon Jinn setting up the gamble to get Anakin off planet. And we have Jar Jar once again in the background, him rubbing those hands together as if he's in on this bet. Very, very influential, kind of like almost a background character influencing someone in the foreground. So this idea that Jar Jar is controlling people in the background of the film is supported by the positioning that he has in all of these frames. That he stands there as this kind of influencer when he's at his most resolute. There's no attention on him, and he's also at his most calm. We also see when the dice is being rolled or beginning to roll, that Jar Jar's intent is the same as what Qui-Gon's is as well. His eyes are focused on the same target. And then once the dice result completes, we see the very first frame after the dice land is Jar Jar's face. That idea, bam, boom, big as day. There it is. So his size is so grand in the film, especially in some of these influential moments. We never see a close-up of Qui-Gon Jinn after that dice roll. It transitions to other scenes. The first frame we have is a close-up of Jar Jar Binks. And of course, going on later on, we see the pod race. Very big shot close-up of Jar Jar Binks working on the pod racer. Looking up a schematic. I'm not sure if this is important, but apparently the section of the engine he's working on is called a fuel atomizer. I'm not sure what kind of significance that can have. But then finally, kind of drawing all these ideas together, the idea of size, positioning in the frame, the invading of space. We see this scene near the end of the film where Jar Jar confronts the Queen, who is Padme. Jar Jar comes up to Padme in the scene and invades her third of the frame. We have 2/3 of the frame is void space. We're looking out the window. The last third is Padme looking at those frames, and then Jar Jar coming into the scene behind Padme. He begins his speech. That we turn to close-up shots of Jar Jar. Here's another moment of that scene where Jar Jar has another angular face. He's looking out the window, but then at the same time, his eyes dart to the side, looking at Padme while he's talking about the Gungans' grand army, standing army that the Gungans have. And at the same time, when we go to where the Queen, Padme, is telling Senator Palpatine that she'll be returning to Naboo, we have Jar Jar placed into the background once again, where her shot is basically framed by the idea of how large Jar Jar is behind her. So this continues the trend throughout the whole film. Jar Jar as this background influencer. And it's supported by the cinematography in the film. So I know I haven't done a great job of discussing these principles. I would recommend some other YouTubers that are a little bit more familiar with cinematography to put this conversation in context. Once you've watched this, I invite you to rewatch the films or go over some of the scenes that I've included in this video, so you can get an idea of where I've been trying to go with this. Is that the idea of how Jar Jar is framed in the film is not that of a comedic character. The way that he's filmed in a dominant way. It's always neutral or below, which is it makes him look very large on the scene, very, very big. So with that in mind, it's just kind of like there you have it. That Jar Jar's cinematography plays such a huge role, and he's never seen, even in episodes 2 and 3, Jar Jar is always depicted as very big on scene whenever he is on the scene. So really, a comedic character that's not painted as weak at all seems very strange, and definitely just goes to further support the idea that there's more to this Gungan than what people think he is. And perhaps his charade was so effective that it's fooled a lot of people for a long time. Anyway, I do like to hear your thoughts, and if you have any questions or comments, be sure to put them in the comments below, and I'll get back to them. I haven't really made an introduction video for this whole Jar Jar theory yet. There's a few out there that kind of rehash Lumparoo's posts from Reddit. But I will be attempting to make a introduction video here in the near future to kind of help those segue into some of my videos, which I would probably deem a little bit more intermediary to advance in the discussion of Darth Jar Jar. So I thank you guys. Have a good one, and hope to see you soon.